What's going on, guys? Nollie the Gnome here. I know it's been a little while since I've made a video, but I figured I'd give you my insights on Battle for Azeroth. I wanted to wait, to be honest, because I figured when it first came out there was still the afterglow effect, and everybody would say it was better than it was, so I wanted to let all the novelty sink in, just get used to the expansion, and then really give you my insights of what I think about it. So let's get into it. There will be timestamps down in the description if you want to jump to any of the specific topics. But we're going to start with leveling. That's generally the first thing you do when you start an X-Pack. So I found the leveling to be like any other expansion. It seemed to take a little bit longer than maybe it did in Legion, but it wasn't painful per se. I would probably find a way to power level next time around for the Alliance. When I did it the first time, it took me a little bit longer than it normally does because I was actually interested in the storyline. So I wanted to spend my first time on Nollie, my Warlock, absorbing all the quest text and learning the story, so I knew really what the zones were about. I mean, this obviously contributes to why it took so long for me to level, but I enjoyed it. So, I mean, overall, if I were to give it out of a 10, the leveling experience was probably maybe a 7. I say that because the zones are a part of the leveling experience, and we'll get to the zones specifically, but as a whole, the entire experience, I would say, was better than the past two X-Packs. I would say it was closer to Mists of Pandaria, which was the best X-Pack as far as I'm concerned, because I really thought they outdid themselves. Compared to the previous X-Packs, Cataclysm and Wrath of the Lich King. So I thought Mists of Pandaria was the best they've done so far. That's the gold standard. As far as storyline, as far as zones, as far as quests, as far as raids. So in my opinion, the gold standard is Mists of Pandaria, that would be a 10. So I would say on that spectrum, Battle for Azeroth falls somewhere in the 7 range. So the quests. The quests were overall quite fun, I think. Some quests were rehashed versions of older quests, but the majority of the quests I found fun enough to keep me wanting more. I felt some of the mobs were slightly overtuned maybe at first, but once I geared up it became a little bit better. I'm not a fan of all the ranged mobs, as I feel like they aggro a little bit too much, and I found myself having to kill a lot more than usual, and especially dying a lot more than I normally did in previous X-Packs. A lot of the quests entailed running to a quest giver, running through all these hordes of mobs, and then I would have to run back just to go back through the hordes of mobs again to get, the boss version of those mobs. And it just feels like I'm just backtracking a lot. So, I mean, it seemed like I had to kill too many mobs in comparison to the previous X-Packs. It was a little bit grindy in that sense, but it's I guess it's give and take. I guess they learn from their experiences, but overall I enjoyed the quests. I just felt that, like the problem as many people complain about Murlocs and previous X-Packs, it's just there were too many mobs. I think they were too condensed. I would have to run through them unnecessarily just to hand in a quest, just to go back to the same location to kill one specific mob. To kill that one specific mob, I would have to kill the things I just previously killed to do the first version of that quest, if that makes sense. And that, to me, seems a little bit repetitive. And I could see how people, especially people new to the game, people that aren't used to this style of gaming, could become either discouraged or just bored, because it is a little tedious. The story. Now, this part I'm really, really excited for, because I really enjoyed the storyline. Now, I'm a sucker for a good story. Primarily my job, what I get paid to do so I can afford things like World of Warcraft, is marketing. So I'm a big advocate of storytelling, and I feel storytelling pushes everything along, be it a product or a movement. And I loved the Alliance side thus far. I've always been a diehard fan of H.P. Lovecraft, so of course all these wonderful references to the Cthulhu story, and his other monsters, and just the ethereal, void-like beings that are in this Battle for Azeroth story, they really touched close to me. So that's why I'm probably a little bit biased in that sense, but I really, really enjoy it. I recently started the Horde side, and I see it's actually quite different. So I'm excited to see where it's going to go. Thus far, the Horde storyline actually seems to have a little bit of a deeper meaning as far as the Horde lore goes. The intro of raiding Stormwind I thought was absolutely incredible. The character depth, what was amazing on both ends, Horde and Alliance, but even by WoW's standards, I would say the depth of the Horde characters is unbelievable. They've really outdone themselves this time as far as the story goes, especially for the Horde. So that's a 10 out of 10. I was so impressed with the stories. The zones. Now, I'll be honest, maybe I'm biased, but I'm thinking, who could hate these zones? Because in my opinion, Blizzard has honestly outdone themselves. I'm sure the afterglow of the X-Pack swells you up with excitement for new content, but these zones are they're incredible. in my opinion, as good as Mists of Pandaria, which I have not felt WoW has accomplished in the past two expansions, to say the least. Legion was better than Warlords, in my opinion, but these zones for Battle for Azeroth, they have a depth and a beauty to them, only to be matched by the first time I stepped into Jade Forest. Like, I am extremely impressed by these zones, and I can't wait to see what comes in the future. PvP. Now, if you haven't disagreed with me yet, this may be where we disagree with each other, but that's what this video is for, to create a conversation. And I would appreciate your feedback, because I would love to hear what you guys think, and then maybe you can change my views, or even if you don't, we can still have a conversation and learn from each other. So I personally felt little has changed as far as PvP goes. Maybe there are slightly less stuns, but overall PvP seems to be the same as it was in Legion. A huge improvement, however, was the account-wide honor. I swap around from tune to PvP, and it's nice to see the effort accumulate instead of having to drop all your efforts to play a new character. I feel at first they may have felt by starting over it would prolong the existence of PvP, but I feel the account-wide honor gives more incentive to want to continue to PvP. It's more like Overwatch, where your account has the stars based on how much you play instead of just each individual hero. So if you played a lot of Widowmaker, you would have more stars on her than if you never played Genji. But that wouldn't make sense to me. So the fact that they went with account-wide, because regardless of what character you're playing, it's still your same effort. You're still putting in that time. So it's cool to be able to show off all the time and effort you put into PvP account-wide. Now, something else I want to talk about, which is interesting, is game mechanics, quote-unquote. It's a very popular term in the marketing industry, and what it means is a progression the user can feel that incentivizes them to keep pushing. So I feel that, they've really they've done an awesome job with this, because with the aspect of PvP, for the first time, I feel it's more realistic for me to unlock the higher PvP rewards and mounts, because it's account bound. A perfect example is I'm leveling a Void Elf Rogue, and I'm doing that just to start PvPing. I already have a maxed Worgen Rogue, but with the knowledge that PvP ranks are account-wide, I know once my Void Elf caps to max level, I'll be able to start where I left off. And I like the visuals of the Void Elf better, so this incentivizes me to want to create a character that's primarily going to be used for PvP. So that's what I mean by game mechanics. They've changed the mechanics of the game so it incentivizes people to want to invest more time, because they feel like their valued time is going somewhere instead of having to start from scratch. So in that sense, I think that was a great step in the right direction. I've never really been a fan of, stuns. Snares, I guess, are okay, but stuns I've never really been a fan of, and I play a rogue. The reasoning for that is it just seems like a cheesy mechanic, a low-effort mechanic that has a very high reward, and I don't know, it sort of takes the skill, in my opinion, out of the game if you cannot move and you're just sitting there waiting for the stun to wear off until you can try to actually outsmart the other individual again. But those are just my thoughts. The dungeons. I'm impressed with the dungeons. They're more involved than they ever have been before. We got a taster for this style of dungeon in Legion, and they have surpassed themselves yet again. Now, like I said earlier, I'm a sucker for story, and these dungeons all have that feel, like the same feel as the Escape from Durnhole had, when you save Thrall from the prison and you're working with him to escape the prison back in time, in the Caverns of Time. Those style of dungeons where you're thrown into a story, it feels a lot less like a speed run, more like you're just doing it for gear, and it feels more like you're a hero in the story, as I feel the game should be. It's the classic Mario save the princess trope, and I'm a real big fan of that, because that's why we play games, for the sense of escapism, but more for the sense of stepping into the hero's shoes and, saving the day. And I think that's a lot of fun, and I really feel a lot of these dungeons have encompassed that mentality. So I really, really thought they did an amazing job with the dungeons this time around. Island Expeditions. I know these have been getting somewhat mixed reviews, but I personally love these. I think they're fun, I think they're random, it sort of breaks the monotony of the game up. Even if they've served little purpose, I would still do them, as I feel it's just fun to do. The incentive to get the mounts, the pets, some of the toys I believe you can get is enough for me to keep grinding. And on top of that, just the difference of mobs, the smart AI, the different zones, it all intrigues me. I'm not sure what the general consensus is on Island Expeditions, but I personally enjoy them. I've been doing them quite a lot, and every time I do it, it's always something new. Some people rush through them, but some people take their time, and I really appreciate the people that take their time, because, the developers work hard on these, I feel, and we're rushing just to get to the end. I don't understand the purpose of it. Why bother doing it? You know, it's so neat. It's so new. Why not explore a little bit? And that's, I think, the purpose of it. So, I don't know. I enjoy it. I think it's neat. Warfronts. I think Warfronts are a lot of fun. It takes the boring aspects of PvP, removes them, and adds what I feel like is the closest thing to a community-based PvP event. To me, at least, it almost feels as old AV did. You know, we work together to achieve a bigger goal and win in the long run. Warfronts, from my experience, has really brought the player base together. I haven't seen this much community in World of Warcraft in a very long time. And Warfronts, there's always one or two toxic people, but the majority of people get along, and we're working together to achieve a bigger goal. Like, that's great to me. I really enjoy Warfronts. I think it was a great addition to the game. Raids. I've done little of Uldir, but what I have completed, it's not bad. The story's, like, nothing special thus far, in my opinion, but it's to be expected. It's the Emerald Nightmare of Battle for Azeroth. So let's give it time and see what comes out next. Unfortunately, that's all I have as far as raids go, because I haven't done very much, so you could say I'm fairly ignorant to what's going on. I have not done normal yet. I've only done looking for raid. I haven't had the time to, unfortunately, invest in a normal raid yet, but I hope to do it with a guild soon, and then maybe I can give you a better interpretation of what I think about it. But let me know what you guys think in the comments about the new raid. Do you like it? Do you think it's boring? I'd love to know what you guys think. Professions. This time around, I feel professions are a little bit of a pain in the butt to level, but I hope over time they'll become a little bit easier. Who knows? I found the best way for enchanting to level, at least, is to run heroic dungeons, DE the drops, and that's on top of the rewards from the world quests and just random drops you get from leveling and stuff. But overall, it's been a little bit of a grind, and you know, it's quite the gold sink to just level up to sort of basic levels. I've never really had this much trouble leveling professions before, and I DE'd the majority of stuff I got from either quests or drops, and I still feel I'm quite behind the pack, but maybe I'm wrong. Do you guys feel professions are at a proper rate? Do you feel they're harder than before? I'd love to know what you guys think. So to summarize, overall, this is a great X-Pack. They've learned a lot from their mistakes. They're still learning from their mistakes. Some things can always, you know, be changed or tweaked, but that's part of the process of developing something. I think community feedback is very important. A big problem is, I think a lot of the time when we give feedback, we're not very specific about what we don't like about it. So if you guys, like, your opinions matter very much. If you guys can comment on this video, message the devs on Twitter, you know, speak to them on the forums, but when you're doing it, try to articulate what you don't like about it. Instead of just saying this X-Pack sucks, say, I don't like this specific aspect because, and then explain. The less emotional you are and the more reasonable you are, the more likely they are to listen and actually adapt some changes. As of recently, as you can see, I believe they have with the vendors now for the Azerite armor. So they are listening, but in order to give them, in order for them to, you know, have constructive changes, we need to give them constructive criticism. So just try your best to, you know, to try to take emotion out of the equation and say, guys, I understand what you're doing, but what if you change this to this, and this is why? It will give them more insights as to what we really want. But I want to thank you guys so much for listening. If you like the video, if you don't like it, you know, share it with your friends, like it, dislike it. Please subscribe if you want to see more videos. Comment, let me know what you guys think about Battle for Azeroth. I'd love to hear your opinions. But until next time, Nollie the Gnome out.